It was a way of letting it out for a long time.
So, to your knowledge, is drug addiction among staff something that happens in the healthcare industry?
It definitely does happen. I've heard of stories about people who have had addictions to certain drugs, but I've never seen it firsthand.
Yes, but I don't know how much.
Yes, drug addiction among staff is something that happens in the healthcare industry, though, because they have easy access to the narcotics or drugs, then it becomes a convenience, and then every time they get the hang of it, then it becomes an addiction.
Yes, it is, but it is not something that is common knowledge to the public. I think it is done behind closed doors. It happens more than you think.
What are signs that someone is addicted to drugs?
So mostly like they're seeking medications, they're edgy, they're fidgety, they're sleepy.
The first thing you probably notice at work is their behavior changes, more like mood swings. They're really high or really lows. They become forgetful, not showing up on time for work, not showing up for shifts, or picking up more shifts because they need money for like whatever drugs they're buying on the side.
Drug use usually happens in secret, particularly in the healthcare industry. So I would just say, in terms of nursing, it would be like not documenting your waste of drugs properly.
You know, it's hard. Like, if you are close to the person because you know them personally, you don't really see any signs or symptoms, even if your colleagues are already telling you this and that. But because you know the person personally, it's hard for you to see it. But because they're telling me, like, with my experience, I was told like he was sleeping more than the hours on our breaks. Like normally we only have like 45 minutes, but because it's not busy, he ended up like 2 hours. They have to wake him up just to go on the breaks. And then they said that they see some like kind of like blood stuff on the shirt.
I've worked with somebody we had suspected that there was something going on with him because of the change in her behavior. And also there was some physical changes on him. He would come in very sweaty, restless, and that's, I guess, in hindsight, now that I'm thinking about it, that's when he actually was having withdrawal symptoms, and he was looking for his next fix. When he gets the drug or he uses the drugs, you could see the changes in his behavior. He would be very flamboyant. He would be very generous. He would say something like, "Oh, I'm going downstairs. Can I grab you some coffee?" Very cheerful. And the next minute, when he comes down from the drugs, he's very down. He's also, just in terms of work, he became unreliable. He was showing up really late for work. He would go on breaks really early. And at that time too, he had a student, and he was leaving the students to fend on her own. So those are the behavior that I have noticed.
Are there methods that staff can obtain drugs? Does access to the machine that distributes them make it easier?
It is very easy because even if you are not the primary nurse of that person, as long as the person is the patient in the ward, so you have access to all those medications on their profile. So especially the narcotic part. So you just put their names in, and you have all the list of their medications.
Yes, yes, especially if you are working in a huge hospital, and especially if you're an experienced nurse, because that allows you to be able to go to different floors or to float, we call it. That's our term. So you just go from different units to work, and pretty much you have access to what we call omnicell in the hospital. Especially when you're going to like a surgical unit, you are giving drugs like candies because you are caring for patients that just had surgery, so they're requiring analgesic.
So in different hospitals, there's two different systems. There's one that's like a computerized system. Some of them are called Pyxis, some are called Omnicell. And those are very controlled, so it would be really difficult to take any medications out which is not watched. Older hospitals have a method where they have a narcotic book. So it's just a cupboard or drawers that are locked, and everybody has a key to it. So when you take out a narcotic, you put the patient's name down and how much you're taking, and if you waste any, you have to have a co-signature, but not everybody does do that. So I would say with the narcotic book system, there's definitely a way. With the computerized system, it's very difficult.
Yeah, nursing staff have access to a medication dispensing machine that we pull every single medication that we use for patients out of. So we have access to every medication that's in the machine, and you're only supposed to pull out, obviously, the meds that are ordered for your patient.
So it's quite easy in that sense. For us nurses, we have a lot of autonomy. We are, we have this job to access any drugs we want. Well, that is ordered for the patient, but yes, it's quite easy. And from what I heard is some nurses or healthcare workers that are addicted as well are just pulling out drugs, not necessarily for the patient. They will pull it out because they have access to it and they can get into the patient's account. They pull it out for themselves. So now we have, as nurses, we have these drugs that are coming out from these little machines that delivers medication, and anybody can go and retrieve those medications.
Is there an official procedure if an individual witnesses what appears to be the misuse of medication issued to patients?
Yeah, like the right thing technically is like it's an obligation for you to report it. It's easier like if you don't know the person, but it gets harder when that person is close to you because you get second thoughts. Like you think of what's gonna happen to him. Is it gonna ruin the career? Like you have all these thoughts when you're close to the person.
Like certain health authorities have things in place. So if someone is addicted to anything, and it could be the person who is addicted coming to them or someone seeing it and reporting it, they put you through a whole program to get you the help that you need, and then almost like a rehab, bring you back to work in the end.
My approach would be to first discuss with the nurse. Maybe there's an explanation for what they're doing, but if I was concerned with a staff member abusing medication or drug, then I would probably also escalate that to like the nurse in charge or my manager. But generally speaking, if there's a patient safety issue, that's how we report it.
I had a hard time because it so happened that I witnessed it myself. Like it's a night shift, and then he came and I was like, "What are you doing on a night shift here?" And he said, "Oh no, I just want to cash out my overtime." And I said, "Well, I can do that. You can just call me and I can fax it." And then because there's only two of us on at that night, my colleague said, "I think he went to the Omnicell." And it's just like, why? Why would he do that? At the back of my head, like, I don't know, I just have to check it. And when I check it, like in split seconds, you got 32 milligrams of hydromorphone. Me and my colleague, I was like in tears and we're shocked. Like we can't believe it because he's a very, very nice guy. And we love him. Like he's a hard worker, he's a very good nurse, there's no reason for us to think that he is, but it's all black and white. Because anything you take in the Omnicell, even if it's just Tylenol, it's all recorded there. So what are we gonna do? So I think it's just like an obligation for us. So first thing in the morning, we reported it to our manager.
It's something that we don't talk about at work. I'm sure there is a procedure for it, but it takes a long time to discover a person when they're misusing drugs. We have this Omnicell machine where nurses would go and get the medication or the drugs. It's when you're on a night shift or you're on your break and another person is looking after covering for you, that person now can go into that Omnicell or in that machine and bring out the medication for your patient, but not necessarily giving it to your patient. And this like happens in the middle of the night, so it's kind of hard to find out how, okay, if somebody is misusing it, you bring it up to your supervisor and then you investigate. At that point is a low-level investigation. You go into the Omnicell. How much is this person taking out? Does it match to what the patient is requiring for pain medication? They go to the manager and then the manager looks into it, and there's quite a bit of people. Once it gets up to that level, there's quite a bit of people that are involved, and then the union gets involved, and then the higher up human resources gets involved, and to a point where the person now requires a lawyer.
Do you think all staff would report if they saw something?
No. I think a lot of people, I think because everyone works so tightly together, sometimes you're afraid of getting them in trouble, or you don't want to be almost like a rat type thing. I do think that people will take that person aside and might tell them, but I don't think everybody will report what they see.
No, it's easy to walk away. Like, I mean, it's easy to just kind of not report and let him be. But I mean, when I think about it, if I don't report it, he can be like lying around, overdose somewhere. Are you really helping him if you don't report it, right? So at least if you report it, the hospital will do something about it. They have really good programs about it.
I don't think so, because healthcare workers, I mentioned about our autonomy. We can go in the Omnicell, we can take care of patients. There's certain accountability and responsibility, and it's their integrity, right?
Is there any second-party confirmation that drugs are being given out in the correct amount and are disposed of appropriately?
Well, there's a personal responsibility, but we also have drugs that it needs to be double-checked by 2 nurses.
Every patient has a medication administration record, so every single drug that we give is written out on the record, and nursing signature is required for that.
So it is a personal responsibility. However, with critical drugs that are like a high-risk drug, you have to have another signature.
How often do you personally have to dispose of medication that would fall under the category of potentially addictive substances?
Oh. Every hour, every day, all the time.
Oh, every shift.
Very, very often.
Depending on your patient, like if they are in a lot of pain, but they're only given, sometimes the medication doses, like you only have to give the half pill. So as soon as you cut it half, then you have to dispose it right away. You cannot let it sitting on the medication table.
We have no idea what's going on in people's lives. These things happen because the staff is not coping properly. It's like playing with fire, because now you have this pain in your body and now you have access, so the temptation is there all the time. It makes you question those things. It's their integrity, right? You have the access,